Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's the 10th of February, 7:11 p.m. our time, Central Time. And I'm just going to do a show with my son, who's been here since January 8th. So about a month and a week or a month and 2 days now. And we're just going to ham it up a little bit and talk about what it's like to live in a small mountain campesino village with natives, Nicaraguans, and narco traffickers and uh and what it's like. And because my son's been coming here as long, he was the first McDonald on the mountain, and he came up alone at 18, lived in a little wooden shack with the guy that's now my brother-in-law, and started construction. And I would come on weekends for payroll, and I was living, a nice condo in Savannah Sur, one of the nicest neighborhoods in San Jose, going to the cinema once or twice a week, eating in restaurants. Remember that, son?
I do, yeah. That
Yeah.
was a pretty big disparity.
Yeah. So you first came up in like 2015, right? Or 2015 or 2016?
Probably early 2016. Yeah.
What let's tell people, like, they've heard me talk about this place, but till I'm blue in the face, but you tell people a little bit about the mountain, like what's it like, what it means to you, um, whatever you want to say on that topic.
Like my father said, I came up when I was 18, going on 19. Um, Been out of high school at that point for about a year or two. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet. I was doing a little bit of work in the trades and stuff, which inevitably persisted. That's now my career. But yeah, just my pops asked me if I wanted to come down and live with him down here for a bit. While I was here, we scouted some property because we wanted to live a bit more rural, and we stumbled upon this gem. And
What do you,
once we laid eyes on it, we pretty much knew this was it. I could see it like from the moment we stepped foot on the property. I could see it like it's like I had a vision of the future. I could see this place. I could see people coming here. I could see us settling here. It's been a fascinating process.
yeah. Now, how would you say this place is different from like Canada? You live in Toronto, the West End of Toronto. City of about, oh, it's got to be like 7 million people now, right? Toronto. It's like a little New York now.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it like coming here after you've spent like 10 months slugging it out in the construction industry in Toronto, driving through rush hour traffic and feeling the vibe in Canada. You can speak about Canada too, but I want to capture that, what we call the first week in Costa Rica, everybody who comes here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know what's coming at this point, but I mean, all the times I've been here, you still get that shock, for like the first 2, 3 weeks. Almost like you're in a dream, This place has a dreamlike quality to it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. No, for first time I came though, it and crewed up. It was like 8 guys we had, started building and everything. That was that was like something else entirely. I mean, I'm a suburban kid, pretty normal middle class life in Canada. And coming to a place like this, it's like, I mean, you hear about it, you see it in screensavers, but then you get here and you're like, wow, this is something else entirely. It's hard to lay word to. Obviously it's gorgeous. Most biodiverse place on the planet. It's just teeming with life, physical and non-physical.
Yeah.
And it's just anybody who's come here says it's probably the most distinct and enjoyable places they've ever visited. Specifically this mountain though, because if you
Yeah.
get off this mountain, you're in one of the probably the worst part of Costa Rica.
Not probably, certainly. Like
Yeah, they
the president of Costa Rica named Bataan as the worst town in Costa Rica.
yeah, they were up to like 2 murders a day at one point. It was basically a little was a little El Salvador before MS-13 got cleaned up.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, tremendous amount of violence here. There's no serious organized crime. I mean, cartels have come in and stuff, but it's not quite Mexico, but it's a lot of like young people running around with guns. This is all off the mountain, of course. On the mountain, it's just serene. It's like this place has been untouched since the dinosaurs, man. Like
yeah,
it's like straight out of Jurassic Park or something. And
yeah,
still to this day, coming here as long as I have, it's still got that magical quality to it. The dreams you get are just phenomenal.
yeah,
The contemplative and spiritual work you can accomplish up here. It's like you're like if there's a stairway to heaven, this takes you quite a ways up the steps. Like just
yeah,
being in a place like this, like you're already way closer to Heaven's Gate, metaphorically speaking.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. I may have come to take it for granted a little bit because I've been living here nonstop for like 8 years now. Last time I was in Canada was 2018. I came back like September 7th, 2018. Have not been back since, and I have no desire to go back. I talked to m my mother, Brandon's grandmother, just on Skype. Um, but like it's so intense, Brandon. Like even when I go to Securities, which is the town that we do our shopping in, when I go to Securities for an afternoon and you come down 32 and you turn up the mountain, I don't feel it right away. I start to feel it, but as soon as you get off the asphalt onto the dirt road, it's just like, yeah, I'm home. And like this tension just sort of releases. And I've never experienced any place like this. I mean, remember when I lived in the West End of Toronto with you? I mean, it's very difficult to stay home. You're always, friend comes by, picks you up, you go to the coffee shop, you shoot the shit, go to a movie, go get a burger at the mall. But you always got to kind of be in motion in North America, kind of like a Seinfeld episode. They're always going somewhere. They're going to the movies, they're going to the diner, they're going up here. You don't want to leave. Like, and I've never experienced any place like this in my life.
Yeah, I haven't even left the property in the month and or probably about a month now that I've been here. I haven't even left the property. Usually I do a little adventure on the mountain while I'm here, trip to the native reserve or at least go visit, friends and family on the mountain and stuff. But this trip, I haven't even left the property. It's just been a lot of contemplative work and stuff and trying to realign myself. And I can't find a better place to do it. You can go
So,
to a Buddhist monastery, you can go, I don't know, whatever place of reverence you want to pick, but this place is just
yeah,
it's got the God force in it.
yeah, it's got the life force in spades. Like you've been doing 1 or 2 hours of meditation a day since you got here, right?
2 hours? No, I haven't quite broken the 2 hour mark. That's like, that's next level stuff. But yeah, usually I'm averaging about an hour a day.
Yeah. And what's happened to your body since you've been up here?
Yeah, well, I work construction. I work with concrete and concrete coatings and stuff. So I work with a lot of products that damage the skin. In Canada, especially when it gets a bit cold, you don't get a lot of vitamin D. I live on my own, and I don't cook really, so my diet is terrible. So I got all that going for me. And just within the first 2 weeks of being here, um, physically you can see the difference. The complexion in the skin, all the blemishes start to go. You start to get that sort of gleaning skin that women are always looking for with all the skincare products. All the little burn marks from the concrete and stuff, they just fade away. It's magical. I mean, it's a combination of the environment, the diet, and I probably the internal work, the spiritual work we do and stuff. It
It's
all
very
just
it's very natural to want to meditate up here.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but you just want to sit down, be quiet. And then there's just like sometimes you can just sit on the front porch, especially at dusk, like at 5:30, 5:15 to like
Dusker dawn.
5:45 when the sun's going down, and you get those giant flocks of birds, jungle birds flying over. I don't know what they are. They're green. Um,
You got
and
everything. You got they got parrots, they got the toucans up here. Even like a normal bird up here would be like a sight to behold in North America.
yeah.
Oh, a blue jay, oh, a cardinal. That's just
Um,
like a flock, that's a flock of birds up here.
you've been up here a month. How many hummingbirds have you seen?
Yo, I couldn't count. Probably about a dozen.
How many?
I get the
What's
blue
the other?
morpho, but yeah, the blue morpho butterfly, one of the rarest butterflies on the planet. You're lucky. If you come up here for a few months, you might be pretty lucky to see one or two. But yeah, we've seen, I think this trip like three, four, you know,
Yeah,
and they're just gorgeous. They got this radiant blue to them that refracts light. I think I
yeah.
remember reading somewhere that you can actually see them from airplanes. They refract like you can see them glimmer.
People go on vacations just to see a blue morpho.
Yeah, it's anybody who's into nature and either birds or butterflies and stuff like that. This is paradise, man.
Yeah, but and then there's the other side to the nature too, right? The beginning of the book of Genesis, all the things that creep and crawl.
Well, yeah, North America, we have all the large mammals, the moose, the bear, the wolf, wolverines, right? You get just crazy mammals. But over here, the apex mammal would probably be a jaguar. And they're opportunistic hunters, right? They're not going skulking around looking to hunt down anything they can. They're always looking just to pick something off. But what you got to worry about up here, which you can't be too preoccupied with, because if you're scared of this sort of thing, it'll creep into your life, literally. You'll start seeing the spiders, the snakes, the scorpions, if you're all worried about it. But if you just kind of fall into the ebb and flow of this place, everything leaves you alone.
Yeah,
You know? And then when you start seeing scorpions, you start seeing the arachnids and all this crazy stuff. Usually it's like it's symbolic, like it's a form of communication. This place has its own language,
yeah,
right? When the natives say they talk to plants and they talk to their environment, you spend 3 months up here, you understand what they mean.
yeah,
I'm not saying we're talking to the trees, but you understand how nature communicates with us and how to live better in harmony with nature.
yeah,
And then you
yeah.
realize how off track we are in cities.
Oh, I can't go back now. There's no going back for me. Like, but I don't have to. I'm 58 going on 59 in July, so this is where I'll die. I want to die in my bed up here, and I want to be burned up here, right?
Yeah,
And don't let anybody put my ashes on their face.
yeah. There's no Agori up here.
Not that we know of. Um, but you can it's just the general unwinding, and then there's the nighttime stuff, and this I honestly can't explain. I think part of it is being out of the electromagnetic field of a city, but this is actually fairly consistent with all of Costa Rica, except like San Jose maybe might be an exception or whatever. But it's on steroids up here, and it's the dreaming you do at night. I like talk about that.
Yeah, the dreams, man. The dreams. The longer you spend up here, and especially if you're doing the spiritual work, and I'm sure if you were diligently praying or, doing your whatever form of worship, as long as you do it diligently and you're in honest pursuit and good intent, that you just leaps and bounds up here. And the first thing you'll notice is you start where, especially coming from a place like North America, you'll meditate or you'll pray, and in the dream state, you start working through a lot of this psychic baggage you build up being in a place like North America, whether it be little traumas, emotional buildup, stuff like that, and you work through it in the dream state. Like from when I first got here to now, I can almost chronologically um, see how my dreams have gone from, incidents and stuff months or years back, and it's usually symbolic, and it's it has to be interpreted. But it's slowly working through my psyche and just breaking down all these barriers, these little blockages that you have. And it's like, well, you start with a dream that's referencing something a year, 2 years ago, and then now, as I'm a month in and I keep meditating and stuff, I'm running out of stuff to work through. And then
Yeah.
then it's just you and God.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the characters on the mountain. Try to describe Ramon to the listeners.
I first met Ramon working on the property. He's an older gentleman. When I first met him, he was in his early 60s, just turned 70 2 days ago. We hired him. He helped with the property and stuff, help work on the property. He's older, so we just had him doing a lot of gardening, you know, um, just odds and ends while we were working on the house. Uh, Interesting figure. He grew up with a Rosicrucian father, so he's got a little bit of this juju to him. Um,
Hmm.
some good and probably a lot of bad. He's definitely got some ghouls hanging around him and stuff. You can barely talk about the guy without him showing up the next day.
Yeah.
Um, we've seen him call birds to his finger, like he's Tinker Bell out of a Disney movie.
Yeah. I've
Like
seen it
he's
with
got
my own
this,
seen it with my own eyes, folks.
yeah, yeah. And but he's lived up here most of his life. He said he first came up here when he was 12 with his father, and they cleared out some land, and him and his brothers have kind of lived up here most of their lives. They're a bit of an eclectic bunch, but some of them are a bit more virtuous than the others. Probably, probably the best one you got is the one that's schizophrenic. He's
Yeah,
probably the best one out of them all.
Guillermo, yeah. He was a math teacher. You know how that was sudden onset schizophrenia, eh? And he was up on the reserve and they gave him some cheech to drink that was laced with they kind of did the equivalent of a Rick Simpson oil. They had it laced with THC oil as well. And he just sort of broke some membrane in his consciousness and never quite came back.
Yeah,
Did you
tough
know
break.
that?
I was aware of that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so they're Jamaican and Costa Rican. Jamaican and Nicaraguan, I think, right?
yeah,
The mother was Jamaican and the father was from Nicaragua. Rosicrucian from Nicaragua.
yeah. They got definitely got some of that black magic, that Santeria shit going on in Nicaragua.
Oh, 100%, man. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got another guy up here. He goes by Ramon de la Laguna, Ramon of the Lagoon, the lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he does that just to differentiate from the Ramon we were just speaking about. I don't think that's his real name, but he was a Contra. Yeah, he fought with the Contras in Nicaragua and stuff. And yeah, dude, he comes up one day, he's walking up the property, he's got a machete in his hand, he's a little bit drunk. He just starts talking to me, and he just kind of cracks open, and he's going like, he's like, yeah, I was a master with a machete. And at first I'm like, well, I must have grew up on a farm or something. Then he starts telling me about his time being a lieutenant in the army and stuff. And just do a little bit of due diligence and research what these people were doing. And they're going into villages, clearing it out with machetes and stuff. So,
Yeah.
you can only imagine how dark somebody like that has gone.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of this place is it's got the full duality to it. You can either go really dark. It's not that this place makes you dark or makes you light. It's what you make of it. The energy, it's so natural. It doesn't really it's pure neutral. It's just nature in its purest form. So what you do with the energy is up to you,
Yeah.
right? If you want to just party and chase skirt and do drugs, that path it'll just it'll just suck you in.
Yeah.
And you got some of the most virile crack addicts on the planet. You got crack addicts up here that could outpace like a mountain trekker. Like
Yeah.
they'll walk 7 kilometers up a mountain road to get some drugs and stuff, and they'll probably live till they're 80, 90 doing crack regularly. As you go
Yes.
And you go to Detroit and it's just some dude on the corner and you know he's not going to see 40.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But you
like,
t talking about Ramon de la Laguna, you you brought up a dimension to Costa Rica and this part of Costa Rica where we live, Limon, and this part of Limon we live in because there's other touristy parts that are very high end. Um, but you meet people with like extremely violent backgrounds. Like it's you and I probably have a half dozen friends in common up here, men and younger men who, like Ramon de la Laguna in Nicaragua. I mean, he's probably killed 100 human beings,
there's some
right?
dark people. This is a place people come to hide, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
how many people who worked on the house have been shot or shot at or and hit with a bullet?
at least three.
At How many friends do you have in Canada who've been shot?
Most of my friends in Canada haven't even held or seen a gun.
But we have no problems up here.
No, we've been given some grace in our journey over here. I mean, it would be hard pressed to tell people, we'd be hard pressed to tell people that we planned this, right? This was a lot of just throwing up our sails and catching some wind, right?
Yeah,
I I can't even tell people whether or not we drew ourselves to this place or this place was drawn to us or how this works. I don't try to deconstruct these things. I'm not gonna try to understand it at a break it down scientifically or, you know,
yeah,
quantify or qualify any of this. It just is what it is. But there's a magic to this whole journey we've been on up here, you
yeah.
know.
I noticed the same thing in Taiwan is that the intensity of life in Chinese society, the density, the population. Most places you go in the world, you're forced to make a fundamental decision about whether you're going to be a good person or a bad person. Okay? Whether you're going to kill people or you're not going to kill people. I saw it in
North
time.
America, North
It
America creates in like a limbo.
it is.
You're not really good or bad. You're just kind of
Yeah.
pushing paper, right?
It's a very in yeah, it's a kind of a spiritual purgatory. Like people don't really move in Western society. It's almost stagnated like a swamp.
No growth, man, no growth. You can see it in our governance, right? It's just
Yeah.
like pure degradation and stagnation.
You want to
I'll tell
talk
you,
about
I'll tell people this to put into perspective coming up here originally. When I first came up to this part of Costa Rica, my dad was living in San Jose. And so I was up here alone most of the time. He came to visit on the weekends. And within 3 weeks of me being here, making a few trips to the hardware store to get tools and stuff like that, within 3 weeks, all the people in the little towns and stuff in the main towns where we had to go to get supplies and stuff, they knew my name. They
yeah.
people I'd never met in my life. Oh, you're Brandon. Like I'm some sort of celebrity or something. Like
Yeah.
who the hell is this kid coming up here? Like, did nobody warn him? Like, this is the part of Costa Rica Costa Ricans are afraid to go to.
Yes.
They tell their kids, "Oh, don't be bad, or we'll send you to Limon,"
Yeah.
you know. And we came in here and we carved out a life for ourselves, and now we're embedded in the community. We're more Tico than Tico.
Yeah. I used to say to people, they'd say, "Aren't you scared living there?" And I said, "Well, I have this vision of a future, and I think we're going to go through a period of lawlessness on the planet or parts of the planet." And I said, "The best place to be in a time like that is a place that's already lawless because they're used to it."
Nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, nothing's going to change.
These people are gonna be right there. They're just gonna be like, "Wow, everybody's catching up."
And there's a sort of rawness to life over here. Like there's you survive by your character,
Yeah, if you
right?
get bit by a snake up here, you gotta ask yourself what you did wrong.
Yeah.
And it's
Everyone
not
I
because it's not because you put your foot in the wrong place.
yeah. Everyone I've seen get bit kind of deserves it. Like you go, yeah, that's a wake up call, right? And they were kind of stagnating in their lives. Um, yeah, nothing really seems accidental up here. What about the natives?
The natives are something else up here. I'm not sure if you guys have watched the Joe Rogan podcast with Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson owns property in Costa Rica, but the one thing of note here is that he mentions that the natives in this part of the world never got into the human sacrifice. Now, you look at the Comanche, the Apache, the Mayans, they're carving hearts, scalping people, and stealing kids,
Yeah,
and I'm sure they've got a lot of rich native culture and there's a lot of great stuff there. But these people up here are just, they've lived in continuity for thousands and thousands of years, and they have traditions that go so far back they don't even know the origins of it. They
yeah,
have their own they have their own written language up here that probably
yeah,
predates Christ,
yeah, yeah,
right? Their burial grounds go back 10,000 years.
yeah, yeah.
It's like,
And all in the heart of the Talamancas.
yeah. Yeah, this range of mountains goes right from Panama to Nicaragua. There's a specific range of mountains, but
No, no, you're going north. They go south, actually. Did they go all the way to, did you say
I think it,
Panama to
it
Nicaragua?
it goes like right up until Guanacaste, almost right at the border.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite a large mountain range.
But we're in the heart of it here.
Yo, this is dead center,
The
man.
the high the highest peaks and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what's it like being up on the reserve?
That place is charged up, and it's like you're already in a place that's already all, full of the life force and everything. But then you meet these people and you see how true stewards of nature is what I'd call them,
Yes.
right? And I think that is the goal of mankind is to be stewards of nature. So I don't know what they did to deserve this karmic cycle they're in, but they've done a lot of good because they've literally got entities that can physically manifest that aid them in their existence. I won't get into too much detail. It's their culture, and we had the luxury of having them share it with us, but they're very secretive about it, and I won't say much more, but yeah, they have beings they can work with physically that physically come into this plane of existence, probably in and out, and and they work with them and they're beneficial. And I think when you live
Yeah.
in harmony with nature, just like the fairies in Ireland and stuff like that, you get these sort of mythological beings that cohabitate with you and they can be beneficial and help you grow spiritually and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you don't get that unless you're stewards of nature.
Yeah. I've already spoken about the Duende on the show. Brandon's talking about the Duende folks. Yeah, they physically manifest to the cable car. And if anybody doubts what I'm saying, we were given a description by one of the natives. And then, of course, Bob comes up here and Bob can see everything with his third eye. He gave the exact same description of them as Eduardo, one-to-one match. Like a police sketch artist would draw the same being, right? And so yeah, they're real. And but they don't they're here now at the property, by the way. Like but they also prefer to reveal themselves to kids. Like
They're 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 it's hard to say what they are. They're not there's no malintent with them or anything like that. I got pinched by one going to sleep the other night.
yeah,
I thought, I mean, I was lights out. I'm laying in bed, something like right in my like this little piece of skin right here at the beginning of your armpit. So I just get like a little pinch, and I go, oh man, I just got bit by something. So I go to swat it away, and I don't feel anything. So I go, okay, I got to deal with this, right? You can't have hostile bugs crawling around your room. So I flick on the lights and I do a full perimeter sweep, checking under the bed with the light and everything. I'm like, there's not a single bug in here. Like, what is this? And I just, whatever, I go to sleep. I wake up. I tell my dad the next day, and he just goes, yeah, that was the duende. Without a moment's hesitation, he's like, yeah, that was the duende. I think about it, it felt like a little kid, like just tugging on my skin, like give me a little pinch.
yeah,
And that's kind of how I've heard them described is like they like to have a chuckle. They like to mess with you a little bit. They'll
Yeah.
misplace stuff, but it's it's nothing. There's no bad intent there,
Yeah, and
right?
they're an example of the interdimensionals, folks. There's a bunch of classes of beings on this planet that can go 3D to 4D and back. And this is the secret of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Dogman, or some of the nastier ones. But there's really benign ones too, and the Duende are one of the benign ones. So we've had a number of dealings with them too. They really sort of started coming in about 6 months ago. The grandkids, Brandon, had quite the experience with the Duende. Um, Tony's kids when they were up here for about 10 days. And the kids always get a little freaked out, eh? Like, and the funny thing is, like and Jekyll had an experience with one. He saw the reflection in the glass of his cell phone. And and then the kids go back to the city and they tell their mom, "Oh, Abuelo Bruce and Abuela Rosemary, they have duende on their property." And the citified Costa Ricans, the urbanized Costa Ricans just sort of laugh it off and don't believe it. But it's real,
Yeah,
you know?
so it's you can see the transition from mythology to folktale just between the city Costa Ricans or even the small town Costa Ricans and the natives up here and the people who actually live in the mountain. The closer you get to that reserve and actually living in accordance with nature, there's a more of a reverence towards these things. And when they talk about it, and you go to the cities and it's just like a folk tale. Oh, they snatch up little babies and they go missing for 3 days and they come back perfectly healthy. And, everybody kind of laughs it off like it's just, yeah, just a folk tale, like fairies and all this stuff. But then you live in nature with these beings and these entities. You go, no, man, this stuff is real.
Yeah. Hard to explain to a North American audience. I think the listeners of the Talamanca Review would believe it, but
I wouldn't even try explaining stuff like this to people in Canada, you know. It's just too, people are going to think I'm going schizo.
well then the Duende have to be wondering about us. Are you smoking in your room? Okay.
You see
Uh,
nothing.
these are not the droids you're looking for. Um, and then the Duende, they have to be wondering about us in this house too. Because in the writing of these books, I've brought so many things in from the fourth dimension to come in and take a look at the energy behind the book and everything, right? The portals, when I was working on Stardust Ranch, you were up here, the portals were opening up, and the giant walking around the house when I was on the fourth dimension. Rosemary saw it. Rosemary was terrified when I was writing The Light of Darkness. She did not know what was going on. And but the fortitude and character of my wife is just quite remarkable. Like a lot of people would be having mental breakdowns, right? And I like living with people who've broken out of what I call the black box of rationality. And yeah, so a lot of stuff has come in here. So the Duende are going, wait, that's not a normal human there, right? This guy's working with all these things here. What's going on there? And yeah, it's just so cool though. Like everything about living up here. I haven't had a
Everybody, everybody,
bad day
everybody
up
else,
here.
everybody else is rushing towards their postmodernist utopia. And we say, no, we go pre-mod
Yeah, pre-mod, not
with,
post-mod.
with Starlink.
Times two.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta indulge a little bit. Fine tobacco, nice coffee, and some Starlink. I'm
Yeah,
content.
yeah. And the latest Mac M4 is
Yeah.
pretty good. What else
Yeah.
comes to mind when you think about this place in contrast to Canada or whatever comes to mind?
Well, we've hit all the major bases, right? I mean, beyond what we've explained, you can only really understand it if you come here because there's an energetic component to it, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's a magical place, and I've been to magical places, good and bad. I was at the
yeah.
Vatican the day the Pope came into power, just surrounded
This
by
Pope. Poppy
Yeah, this
Francis.
called Poppy Francie, and just surrounded by the legions of hell. And, uh, and I've been to Bias in India, sat in front of a living master and felt that energy,
And then
right?
all the Sikh temples we went to as well, the Golden Temple and all the little shrines where their saints lived.
Yeah, and you
You get
feel it.
you get a little charge, but there's nothing really compares to this place.
There, it's like one guy emulating what's going on up here for thousands of years.
Yeah. But you know what you know what I might be comparable to the energy up here is the part of the Himalayas in India where all the yogis go and live as renunciates. That I'll bet you that would have a really freaky feel to it as well.
I'm sure there's other sites in the world that are charged like this,
Yeah.
but something about this place being unmolested by civilization,
Yeah.
uh, that is just it's raw, it's pure, right? It's distilled down to its purest form,
Yeah.
and it's never changed, right?
So tell people what's behind us. Like, so when you go down the road is about 7 or 8 kilometers to get down to the highway. And it's about a 20-minute drive because you can't go much faster than 20 kilometers an hour, 25, maybe 30 in some stretches. But you just kind of take it easy, right? And it's a windy mountain road, and there's parts of it where if you were to go over the edge, you'd be rolling down a cliff for like 300, 400 feet. But behind the house, Brandon, what's going on back there? How
You're
long
talking about
how long do you think it would take to walk to the Pacific side through straight jungle and there's no civilization back there?
if you had a native guide, like 2 to 3 days, but if you
You
just
think
went
you
alone,
you think you could get to the Pacific in 2 or 3 days?
I mean, if you go horizontally, this country's not that wide.
Yeah,
Not that wide of a country. And if you could do the trip from here to Pehibaye, which is vertically, if you can do that in 2 days, then yeah, it's probably about the same.
yeah. I would take a look at a map. I would look at that on Google Maps. It's about two and a half the times the distance to the Pacific side. I would say it would be a 5 day hike. That would be epic. That would be you would be telling your grandkids about that, right?
Maybe like a hike straight to Chiripo, which is the highest point in Costa Rica, and it's
Yeah.
pretty much on the Pacific side.
You could probably follow a river right to Panama.
Oh, people do it.
Yeah, and
Even the natives, the
you would
Trek.
skirt every border check and everything.
Yeah, I look at Eduardo, the guy we stayed with on the reserve. He's a park ranger. He's a steward of like, was it like 300 kilometers of jungle?
Yeah,
Um, and he's done like 14-day treks in the jungle. You know,
yeah,
the the constitution and the will you need to successfully pull off 14 days in the jungle is just unbelievable. You
that's
step,
that's foraging too, eh? You wouldn't be able to carry food for
no,
14 days.
no, and um and the natives up here, like they can do it without breaking a sweat, right? I mean, we step in there 30 minutes into our trek into the jungle, you start sweating and you don't really dry off. It's too humid. Like you're just sweating the whole time. It's pretty arduous, right? It's like those backpackers you see climbing the Himalayas, and then you see the Sherpas walk by with like 10 people's worth with a backpack carrying 10 people's worth of supplies.
Yeah,
And they're just putting everybody to shame, and they're just some skinny little dude, and you go, no, that guy's all tendon and he's lived up here his whole life. So
yeah, it's an uncanny strength,
yeah, you
endurance.
almost couldn't even measure it in like a gym setting or something like that. It's just you got to watch them in their natural environment. You know,
Yeah,
you go up to Nunavut or something, and you look at the Qualu people and how they live in that cold environment, and you go, I can't do this. I don't have the constitution for this. It's something similar. You look at the Bedouin in the desert, right?
yeah,
There's always a local population that just outclasses anybody else,
yeah,
right?
yeah. What's
And
your
they
bet?
have it in spades up here.
Yeah. Um, what else do I want to ask? how's this trip been for you?
Oh, phenomenal. Phenomenal. It's just been all about a lot of healing
Yeah,
internally and physically and
but
spiritually
you're still not ready to make the jump to Mac from Windows, right?
from Windows to Mac.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm not.
You don't like
That's
that M1?
not.
What don't you like about that M1?
I don't dislike it. It's just it's like I do a bit of like when I'm in Canada, I do a bit of gaming and stuff. I like a good graphics processor and stuff like that. But in terms of just functionality, the Mac is definitely cream of the crop.
Yeah. And what have you I mean, so you've been coming back and forth visiting here for like almost 10 years now, 9 years, 8 years. Have you noticed any changes in me?
I wouldn't say like changes. Like, you're not a different person, but your definitions have definitely evolved, right? So
Yeah.
a place like this, so you're already a diligent meditator and practitioner as long as I've known you, my whole life. You've been a writer, all these things, and you've been diligent with them. But a place like this just amplifies it. I remember watching you write when I was young, and you'd work on a book for it would be a few years, right? You'd be working on a book.
Yeah.
Whereas up here, it's just you go into like a mode, and
Yeah.
and you just don't stop until it's done. And it's like you're just pulling energy,
Yeah.
right? You're just pulling all this energy and getting it done.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing is you can't really set time frames in a place like this, right? You don't
Yeah.
get that North American efficiency, right? They didn't go through the Industrial Revolution here. Nobody understands like, oh, 9 to 5, we have to get a certain amount done, da 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 da. So if you're used to that, then a place like this can be a bit arduous, right? But you
Yeah.
get used to it, right? If it gets done tomorrow, next week, yeah, so be it, right? As long as it gets done.
Yeah.
Which
Sign
is
off.
it's a much more natural way to live.
Yeah. So what how do you think Rosemary is going to survive her first plane trip?
She'll be fine. You know, she's a tough lady. She'll be fine. But it's gonna be jarring, man. I mean, growing up in a place like it's gonna be similar to me going from a city to a place like this. Growing up in the suburbs, or like when we went to India, spent a month in India. It's just like
Yep.
it's a huge shock to the system, right?
Yeah.
Completely changes the way you view the world. It just opens up your whole world. So it'll be good.
Sign off, son. Hey,
Uh,
I I'm Brandon McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.
I am Brandon McDonald, son of Bruce McDonald. This has been Talamanca Review. Live
Yeah,
long and prosper.
I uh I haven't taken any opportunity to brag about you in this podcast, and I'm just going to embarrass you a little bit before the podcast is done. Yeah, I don't want to brag, but you can count to 100, right?
It's a bit tough after about like 40, 50,
Well, you can get to 100, right?
yeah, I've done it once or twice.
And when you put a mark to a paper, it's your signature, right? You don't make an X.
Looks like a bunch of scribbles, but yeah, they tell me it's a signature.
I have successfully raised a man in Generation Z, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, coming to this place was a walkabout, so to speak. This was my coming of age. I mean, a little late, right? 18, 19. Most cultures do it at like 14, 16. But I'm North American, right? I mean, the fact that I even got a coming of age experience like this is I
Yeah.
could see the difference between me and people in my kids and in my generation. It's just night and day, right? Having
And
having having the challenge of coming to a place like this and trying to establish ourselves and learning a
yeah,
new language. It's
you're
like learning
flu
how to swim in the deep end, right?
yeah, and you're fully bilingual now.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Everybody understands me. I speak pretty fluent Spanish. I mess up some of the masculine, feminine, and need some refining, but yeah, I'm fluent.
All right, folks, that's tonight's show. Very relaxing. We'll get back to the sordid world we live in tomorrow. I'm Bruce McDonald with my son Brandon, and this has been the Talamanca Review. Peace out.